We are here today. Hi. We're doing some reacting, I guess, to some terrible Bucket or just general programming tutorials. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Specifically, I was looking at Bucket, but you know. Hello there once again, it's a Dan. How's it going, Dan? I think I actually have a halfway decent audio setup this time. So last time, I think it was a couple hours after the end of the stream. It was that Wednesday? Yeah. So on Wednesday, a couple hours after the end of that stream, I got myself a Go XLR Mini, and it is amazing. I've got baguettes, so I'm happy. Oh, I've got a baguette. Only a baguette? You need more than just a baguette. Hey! It's a Calvo Compleos 1901. I hope I got that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Sincerely apologize if I did not. Oh man. Okay. So. Boop. A little bit of searching here. I sort of did. Has donated with $5. The message, enjoy it. Thank you. I appreciate the message. I don't think that was an actual donation, but that's okay. Honestly, the message is enough. I enjoy talking to you all. It's fun. Alright, so we have here a episode 1 of Spigot 1.14 coding, an introduction to Spigot. So I don't know if any of you actually know kind of any programming or any Bucket or Spigot programming, but I'm gonna kind of tear this apart. I say tear it apart. I mean we're gonna actually watch it and see if it's any good. So hopefully it is.
Guys, and welcome to
It looks really weird. Uh-oh. Oh, interesting. It doesn't look, it looks like a regular message on my end. That's very strange. I don't know. Well, if you donated, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If not, the message is enough, really.
to my Spigot plugin development series.
All right.
It is me, Coded Red, and I will be teaching you guys
It's
how
me,
to code
Coded Red.
Spigot plugins. I will be using the latest version to today, which is 1.14. It just came out a few days ago, actually. And in this series, I'm going to teach you guys how to code basically anything.
We're doing this in Eclipse, of course, because Eclipse is by far the best IDE.
that deals with Minecraft plugins. I'm going to start off very simple.
Looks like a message on Streamlabs and YouTube, huh? I don't know, it's strange.
Especially for this tutorial. If you don't know how to code, that's okay. You have to code Minecraft, you have a basic to intermediate stance on coding. If you are very good with Java, then this is going to be very simple for you. So let's get right.
If you don't know Java programming, that's okay. No, it's not. If you don't know programming, you should probably learn Java before you jump into Bucket. I mean, you can learn Java while you're going and jumping into Bucket, but it's really good to have a baseline kind of, hey, this is what's going on. This is how this works. You know, before you jump in and start programming plugins that other people will use.
Into it. The first thing you're going to need is an environment. I use Eclipse IDE. I'll leave the download in the description for you guys.
honestly, to each their own. I prefer IntelliJ like a lot. I've used Eclipse for years. Some people still prefer Eclipse. That's fine. But really, any tutorial that's not using IntelliJ, I'm suspicious of, but that doesn't mean it's a bad tutorial. It could be good.
But hop into your environment, and we're going ahead and create a new project. To do this in Eclipse, you're going to either right-click here, go to New, or you go up to File, New.
Please be Maven.
Project.
Please be Maven. Please be Maven. Please be Maven. Please be Maven.
Once in here, for our first episode, we're just
this doesn't look like Maven to me.
World. And then go down to here and press Finish. And also, I'll be using Java 1.8.
This doesn't look like Maven. How are we gonna? So the question is, how are we gonna import the bucket API? That's the real question here.
Created.
That sets the tone for the whole rest of the video.
I'm gonna go into my SRC, click on it. I'm gonna right click, go to New, Package.
Okay, so far so good.
I'll teach you guys more about packages in a later video, but for right now,
Wait,
this is.
I'm confused. So what is the target audience for this? Like, are you trying to target people who don't know programming at all? Are you trying to target people who don't know Java? Are you trying to target people who are just trying to make a bucket plugin who knows some Java? Like, what's your audience here? Because it seems like it's like back and forth between like, hey, get your IDE installed. Great. Whatever IDE you like, and then it goes to, if you don't know what a package is, like, wait, who knows what an IDE is and what their favorite IDE is, but doesn't know what a package is in this case? Like, who's your audience?
Your package is basically the name of your website, and if you don't have a website, you could name it just me.yourname.
Okay, so best practice is to actually have a website with this, but generally, sure, I guess. But really, you should have a website associated with your Java package. That's really best practice.
And dot the name of the project, which would be Hello World.
Also, please don't name your packages with uppercase letters. Please. Never do that. Uppercase letters are for classes, not packages.
Hit finish. Once your project is created, go ahead, right click on that, sorry. Go to New, Class.
If you want to infuriate anybody who ever looks at your code, name your packages with uppercase letters. He's gonna name his class with lowercase letters now too. I'm kidding.
And we're naming this class the main class, so main.
Okay, he did.
And then this will be created for you.
I'm still curious as to how he's gonna import the bucket API.
For the first few videos, I'm just gonna teach you guys with one class. I will get into later tutorials where we'll be using multiple classes and multiple projects.
Again, who's your target audience here?
Packages, I mean, sorry. But for right now, we just need one class. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to extends Java plugin.
Great.
Now what this does, it basically puts Spigot into our project.
It does not.
And before we can import this, we're going to need to import it to our project itself.
Oh no, come on. Please use Maven. 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 Or Gradle. Fuck it. I don't care. Just use a freaking version system.
Right click on Hello World.
Please use Maven. Please use Maven. Please use Maven. Please use Maven.
Once in here, go over to Java build.
Fuck you and your non-reproducible builds.
And that's
I'm afraid my brain cells are gonna go into negative numbers and create a black hole. I'm so sorry.
Right click here, properties, Java build path. Once in Java build path, go to libraries.
God damn it.
And we're going to add external jars.
Don't do this. Don't follow this advice. Use Maven or Gradle or something, right? Use a system that's literally designed for importing libraries into your project rather than this bullshit. because those systems allow for reproducible builds and also much easier access to the versioning, so you can update versions later.
It opened right up to my Spigot 1.14 server.
No, using the whole thing? This includes NMS and everything. It's not even the API, it's just fucking the whole server. Oh my god. Watching these videos should be considered so more. I agree. Jesus. Also, what's the status there? What is that? What are those check marks? What program is that from?
But if you haven't already downloaded Spigot download, I'm going to show you guys later in our video how to do that.
Oh no. No. You don't download Spigot, you build it. Alternatively, you download Paper, which you should be doing anyway, but you build Spigot specifically because there are licensing issues, legal issues around Spigot and the Bucket, server, where you can't actually distribute the built jars. If someone's distributing those, it is illegal. They cannot do that. Oh, it might be OneDrive. Yeah, it might be.
But for easy sakes, you can just go to Google and just type in download Spigot.
Ah, Jesus fucking Christ, don't do this.
And you can find a
That's how you get viruses.
download for one of the versions.
Oh, well, your voice is low. Oh, my apologies. Let me go ahead and turn it up a little bit. There you go.
I do recommend building it yourself, and I will show you how to do that later.
Yes, build it yourself, because that's the only legal way to do it. Please make it higher. I did. Hopefully that works.
But for right now, go ahead and just Google it, and you just download.
Let me know if that's still too low or not. If it is, actually, you know what? I could bump it up just a hair. How's that? Is that a lot better? Thank you. Excellent, yeah. I'm throwing it up to max. This should be, looking at my mixer, actually, it should be fine.
The latest version. But I'm going to go ahead and import it in. And once it's in here, you can apply and close. Now that we applied Spigot into our plugin, we can go ahead and import the Java plugin right here. And to import things into Eclipse, you can either hover over it and click import, or you can press Control, Shift,
very good.
letter O.
Alternatively, if you use Eclipse, just hit Alt-Enter. It is so much easier. The keyboard shortcuts in Eclipse are so much friendlier than IntelliJ, I'm sorry. If you're using IntelliJ, use Alt-Enter. The keyboard shortcuts in IntelliJ are so much more friendly than Eclipse. So much friendlier. Push the desktop audio up too. I did. A little bit. The video is too small. A lot. Okay, here you go.
And we'll import it for you.
Ow.
Awesome. The next thing we're going to have to do to this class is we're going to add in an audio.
What's interesting is as I'm doing this, I'm hurting my own ears. I need to turn down the audio to my headphones a little bit here as we go on, because ouch. Ouch. That hurt. That was the wrong thing as well. That's perfect. Thank you. I'm glad it's perfect for you. Excuse me while my ears just bleed for the next 5 minutes. I did actually test this a while ago, and it's frozen. It's completely frozen. Again. Hey, look at that. It's almost like I'm a professional or something. I did actually test this a while ago, and it was working just fine, but apparently the stream output for whatever reason is low, and I don't know why. New equipment, what can you say? I'm gonna do my math homework. Enjoy! Don't have too much fun. Glad to see you using Firefox. I use Firefox because it's not my main browser, so I use it for streams. That way I'm not, like, polluting the stream stuff with random browser BS. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Okay, we're gonna bump the headphones down to about, let's say 40%. There we go.
On enable and on disable. So I'm gonna type it up real quick.
Okay, is that, can you actually understand that? Can you hear that? Oh, let's turn that down just a little bit. You rip your drums. Yeah. Sorry about that. Also, you can hear the clickety-clackety on this keyboard. It's beautiful. Yes. Okay, fantastic. And I can actually kind of understand things too.
What the override does, if you don't know what it does, in a later video. But for right now, all you need to know is when the server starts up and your plugin's being enabled.
There we go. Sorry about that. Like I said, I thought I had it set up, but apparently not. I'm a moron. Alright, let's go back to where we were.
What to do to this class is we're going to add in an on enable and an on disable. So I'll type it up real quick.
You don't technically need the overrides, but it's good practice. So, fair enough. ASMR. Yeah, exactly. I don't particularly like his color scheme. It's kind of hard to figure out what the hell he's typing or doing.
I'll teach you guys what the override does if you don't know what it does.
Oh my god. Again, what's your target audience here?
Later video. But for right now, all you need to know is when the server starts up and your plugin's being enabled, whatever's in here will run, and when the server's turning off and wherever your plugin's being disabled, whatever in here will be run.
What about reloads? What happens with reloads? When you do a reload on your server, it'll call the on disable method, and then it'll call the on enable method again. I can't remember if it reloads the entire plugin. I believe it does. I believe it unloads it from memory and then reloads it back into memory, possibly. So,
this is needed for all plugins. We're probably not going to use it for this plugin itself, but yeah.
Wait, that's not Python. Hey, very astute of you.
You're going to need this in your main class every single time. But for this plugin, since it is the first episode, we're just going to do something simple like if you type in /hello console, or you get a message that says
that's illegal. No, it's not. I can make any icon I want. Looks like the audience is something between potato and senior devs. Sounds about right, yeah.
Or you. Pretty simple.
What is this comment style?
To do this, we're going to have to create a function, an on command function. An on command function looks
oh, okay, I see. No, never mind.
like this. This would be a public boolean on command.
Wait, I always called it a boolean. Is it boolean or boolean? I think it's boolean, but this guy's making me wonder a little bit. See semicolons. I'm scared. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Python is terrified of semicolons. Did you not know this?
Command. We're gonna need a command sender.
So for this, actually, I personally prefer iCar's command framework, or ACF. The framework that he's made is very annotation heavy, which is super nice if you're creating commands rather than trying to stick them all into the plugin.yml or in this, I don't know, on command BS, whatever. The annotations are so much more helpful.
And we're going to name this sender. We're also going to need the command itself. Command. I'm going to name it abbreviate command for that. We're going to need string. We'll name this label.
But I understand if you don't want to use ACF in this particular setup, because it would be a giant pain in the ass to go to the Maven repo where it's hosted, Maven, and download the jar and then insert it into this type of plugin manually, because yeah, that would be a giant pain in the ass. This is what Maven is for, because Maven exists, and all of these bucket APIs and everything is also on Maven. Huh, maybe we should be using Maven.
We need some arguments for multiple. The command is hello, name, whatever, amount. We need some arguments for that. So to do this, string, we'll name args.
But we're not overriding this one because reasons.
All right, go ahead and import command sender and command.
Yep, we're not overriding this one because reasons. Yeah. These overrides are very important, he says, forgetting to override the other function that he's overriding.
And then for the command, it's going to be this one, bucket.command.
And this is why inserting the jar itself, or the server jar itself, is a giant pain in the ass and a huge issue, because you have multiple commands now, and one of them is NMS, and the other is not. You have to be aware of which one's which.
Go ahead and return false. Just to throw in a statement there so we don't get that red underline. All right.
Just return false. Just whatever. You can return true too. It does, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just return something. Pfft, it's fine. Return true false.
Inside the on command. So this is where if someone types a command in, this is basically going here. Our command is /hello. So we will do if the label dot equals ignored case. Oh. Hello. Then we're gonna do whatever's in here. And we're just gonna do something simple. We're gonna do sender dot. So when you do sender dot, you'll see everything you can do with the sender. It's not much compared to a player. Sender can either be a player or it can also be a console. And I'll show you later in a few seconds of how to determine who's who.
Just instance
So
of player.
Sender dot send message. And we're gonna say.
And again, he's missing his Java docs now too. The most beautiful thing about his setup here is that he just has the server jar, which includes NMS, which is bad. And because who knows what you're going to get there. And then secondly, you don't have the Java docs or sources now. So now when you see like send message, you just have arg0, arg1, arg2, right? With no context as to what the hell there is going on there, and no Java docs. So that way when you roll over the send message, you see nothing. Whereas when you use Maven, you can download the Java docs and sources automatically, and that allows you to roll over functions and see what they're doing, and see the method names, and see why, or see the argument names, and see why you're putting things into where they are. It helps a ton. It's a David. Hello, hello, David.
Hey. We'll do hey. How are you? And then we'll return true. Pretty simple.
Very simple.
The simplest thing you could possibly do.
Not the simplest thing you could possibly do, but very simple nonetheless.
And then before we put this into our server, we're gonna need to do one more thing. Go over to your SRC and make sure you're not inside your package. Make sure you're actually in your SRC. And you're gonna right click, go to new, file. This file plugin.yml.
Forgetting your resources directory, but okay.
Every plugin that you create needs this file.
You really should be sticking that into a resources directory instead, but fine, whatever.
And in here, you're just
also, how are we going to compile this? Well, okay, never mind. I know how we're going to compile this.
Declare the name of it. I'll show you. So there's a few things you're gonna need to do. You just declare what the main file is, put the name of the plugin, the version. You need to do the author.
Author.
Spell author. And then also the most important thing in here, you need to declare the commands.
Again, iCar's command framework eliminates the need for this.
For commands, go to the next line, 2 spaces, and then the name of the command, hello. You can do more.
Please don't capitalize your commands.
More with this. You can do 2 more spaces, and you can do the description. But for right now, we're just gonna do this. Just gonna name it basic hello. For the main class, it is gonna be the package, and then after hello world, you'll be .main. So be me dot coded red.
And again, please don't capitalize your package names.
Dot hello world.
Yes, you technically can. Doesn't mean you should.
Dot name. The name of our plugin is Hello World. The version is 1.0, and the author is me. Awesome.
Technically, the author is a array, but you can make it a string too. It doesn't really matter that much. And I think it's authors, not author. I think there's an S in there. The plugin.yml is a confusing mess.
Sorry if I'm moving a little bit too fast. I just want to get all the basics out of the way.
You're not. You're really, really not.
So once you guys know how to do this,
Again, who's your audience?
so we can get into more fun things instead of just sending a message.
Expects you to have an IDE installed. Says, oh, sorry for moving too fast after 3 functions.
But just go over it real quick before I put it.
Who's your audience, man?
I went ahead and I created a main class through the package me.codered.helloworld. Inside the main class, the first thing you need to do is extends Java plugin. You only need to do this in one class file, your main class file.
You don't have to name it main.
That is why in our plugin.yml we declare where our main class was. Once you have the Java plugin inside your...
My university didn't teach about code syntax standards, and students always make terrible code. Or A, B, X, Y, Z. See, they'll learn the hard way later. What'll happen is they'll go in and they'll go out and make their own whatever programs, right? And then about a year later, they'll go back to them and go, what the fuck was I doing? And now I have about 2 brain cells left. You effed. Keft. Good job. I can very clearly see that you have 2 brain cells left, Dan. Oh well, you tried. Oh, brand cells even, yeah. Perfect.
Class, you can start actually using stuff from Sphere, such as your command sender, your command, all the stuff that is involved with sender and players.
Alternatively, use Maven. Or Gradle. Gradle if you really want. Honestly, don't use Gradle, because it's designed for projects that are the size of Google, and your project is not the size of Google.
You think it's in Minecraft, basically.
Must have lost more than 2.
Very important. Also, in our main class, we went ahead and put on enable and an on disable. We'll get into this later in the series, but this is needed for every main class. We also went ahead and created a command through the onCommand function. In the onCommand function, you're going to need a sender, a command, the label, which is basically the command name.
Are we just going back and reiterating everything we've done?
Get on to the argument.
I guess, okay, fair enough. It's kind of dull, but it does make sense from a teaching perspective, going back and kind of reiterating. It makes, yeah.
Hello, your lives just got better.
Wow. Wow.
A few minutes. And inside this function, we went ahead and decided the label equals hello. Go ahead and just send the message, send the player a message saying hello, hey, how are you?
We're watching terrible programming advice. It's not quite as interesting as terrible hacking advice, but it's still terrible and kind of hilarious to watch.
Pretty simple, pretty fast and easy. So let's go ahead and
Judging by his tutoring is schizophrenia or something, Jesus.
import this, or export it, sorry. Export it to
Hello there, Angel, he says.
Hello.
server. So I went ahead.
I don't know
and
why I said that. I just
on
wanted to be
hello
weird.
world. Once we export,
Using the export
Inside
function and
export.
everything.
go to
God, there's so many clicks involved in this. All I do to export my plugins is I just double click the package. That's it.
Java, jar file. That is Java.
Sure. Sure.
That's not it.
Oh, you're fine.
That's why.
Oh, okay.
And then jar file. Go to next.
Yeah, look at how many clicks this
Go
is.
ahead and go to browse.
Hang on, let's count the clicks. Hang on.
So I want to import
So we
this,
have
or
one
export it,
click.
sorry, export it to our server. So I went ahead and right-clicked on hello.
Oh,
World,
okay, 1 click.
Went to export.
2 clicks. There we go. Jesus.
Inside export. Go to Java.
3, 4,
Jar file.
5,
That is Java and then jar file.
mhm,
Go to next.
6,
I'm going to go ahead and go to browse
7,
and to put it right into my server. And I'm going to go into my
8,
plugins
9.
folder and I'm going to save it
10,
as hello world.
11,
And go ahead and press finish.
12, and 13 just in
Now, if
case.
you-
So 13 clicks to export your jar file. That's a giant pain in the ass and some typing. all I do to export, because I use Maven, all I do to export my plugins is just double click one thing once. It's 3 clicks maximum.
You do not have a test server, I will post a video of how to create one. It takes
4 clicks maximum.
less than 5 minutes to create a test server, and it's really easy. But let's go hop into game.
Because I use Maven like a professional.
See how it works. Alright, I just went ahead and started up my server. And inside the console, if we see, it says right here, Hello World enabling.
Yay!
1.0.
We have our first
Let's
plugin.
hop in game, see how it works.
My computer is a potato.
Alright.
Somebody has a lobby that they copied off of. What is that, Mine World or whatever?
Go ahead and type hello. For sure that's what we named it. Hey, how are you?
Beautiful.
/ hello. Hey, how are you?
So my suggestions with ACF and others are, yes, technically they would take more time to set up. But in the long run, when you're actually creating a plugin that is literally more than just, hey, how are you, after typing hello, if you're creating anything more complicated than that, then I would highly recommend using Maven and probably ACF and Event Chain and others.
It also works inside of our console. Type in / hello. Hey, how are you?
Now the question is, what is the rest of the 10 minutes of this video?
Pretty cool, pretty cool. But I think it looks a little lame. It's too simple.
Yes, it does. Okay, so we're doing something more complex, which would probably want Maven, but we'll see.
This up a little bit. So let's go back into our class and or actually go ahead and just delete everything inside this if statement. And then we'll just go ahead and yeah, let's do this.
Okay, someone did not plan this out. This was not planned.
So if the sender is instance of player,
perfect.
do this. So what this is saying
Get
is
to import
if
your
the
player,
sender, which is you or the console, is a player, then we'll go ahead and send them a different message. And then we're gonna go ahead and import player real quick. Now let's create our player. Player is just like another, like it's just saying like string.
Oh my god,
Our
who's your
player,
audience?
Player. You can name this whatever you want. I can name it P. Sometimes it's easier to name it P. It's faster. But we'll go ahead and name it player. Player equals a cast of a player. And we'll cast a sender.
We're just gonna say, okay, so we're like, oh, player is basically like a string, and then we're gonna say, oh, we'll cast it to player, as if these same people know what a cast is. Hope I'm not gonna grow another chromosome. Sorry, Dan, you might.
Now that our player is created, we can go ahead and start using him.
Yeah. Okay, we just skipped over the fact that, casting is a thing that exists. Sure.
So, just like sender.
Everybody knows what casting is. It's fine. It's not one of the more complicated things of whatever, inheritance and whatever. Who needs to know that? It's fine.
Send message. Player has the exact same thing. Player dot send message.
This only works because player is an instance of command sender or something. Who cares? It's fine. Just cast whatever to whatever.
But before we do that, I'm going to show you guys everything you can do. Player dot, and you scroll through these, and you can see there's a lot of things you can do with players. You got a potion effect. Yeah, this list just goes on and on. You can do a lot of things with a player, but it's different than a console.
Player is different than a console. Who knew?
It's also important to know who's sending the command. Your player can do a lot more things that a console can do. So if your
Really?
plugin is to teleport someone and the console sends the command, you're going to get a whole lot of bugs in that plugin.
Wow, who'da thunk it? You can't teleport the console.
Whole lot of bugs. So yeah, we'll go ahead and just do
Whole lot of
layer
bugs.
send message.
I almost hit the mute button in time. Look, I'm trying.
And I'm gonna show you guys.
It's difficult.
Oh my god, I can't type. I'm gonna show you guys how to do color codes.
Hey,
Now,
color
there's 2 ways
codes.
to do color codes. Depends on how complex your colors are going to be. There's actually 3 ways, but I'll show you these 2. Simple
Okay.
way, you can do chat color dot. You can see all the different colors you can do.
This is the best way, for sure. Like, this is the way that you should be doing it. Or if you use Icarus command framework, then just use that method.
Chat color dot gold.
Because this is agnostic across all the different platforms. This isn't just for 1.43, and this would work on 1.8 as well, and 1.7.
Plus. Hey. And then we can do plus again, and we can do chat color dot aqua. Plus. How are you?
Okay.
We'll do that. Actually, I'm gonna show you guys how to do bolding and stuff. You do plus, and we'll do
Just
chat
bold.
color dot bold.
Look at that, beautiful. It's almost like they designed it to be, easy to use.
And then you're gonna add in that, and then chat color dot
You don't have to add in the string, the empty string.
plus. All right. This is how you bold a question mark, for example, with a color.
You could just leave the aqua from the previous. The bold just adds to it. It doesn't. You don't have. Okay.
You do the bold or italics, whatever, first, and you add in nothing, not even a space or anything, and then you add in the color, and then you add what you want.
Could just do toString as well.
Do the color and special, I guess, special color too. And this will basically just send a message like gold, hey, aqua, hey, how are you, with a bolded question mark. Now it's pretty simple, but if you want to get into more complex coloring, like every color has like a rainbow effect, I guess, there's another way of doing this, which is probably a way that everyone knows how to do. You type in chat color dot right down here, translates alternate color codes.
No, don't use this. This is a legacy option for legacy chat, not for use of normal operations.
And we're going to translate the and symbol. And we're going to go ahead and do and b, hey, and 1.
Or for custom color codes as well, or color strings. I think this takes strings as well, which is again probably how ACF does it, or maybe it does something different for parsing. But one way or another, honestly, you really just need to not use this. There's no purpose to it.
And this is just to use the color codes that everyone knows how to do, and all the ands. It's a lot faster, in my opinion, to do this way.
But it's not better.
There's a third way to do color codes. I really don't like doing it that way. You can look up other tutorials how to do it. But this is
Thanks. I guess the third way he's referring to is the classic color codes, where it's the legal definition separator thing.
the main 2 ways of how I do color codes. So yeah, let's move.
Please don't use the second method.
Come on. This if statement is saying if the player is a sender, go ahead and do this. Oh, I'm gonna do return true to get them out of there. That just kicks them out of the whole plugin.
Does it? I get what he's saying, but
if they're not a player, let's do an else statement, and let's do another send message, sender.send message.
Did you know that zombies can also run commands? Yep, they are classified as a command sender. So are command block minecarts and also command blocks.
Do chat color red.
Just random tidbit while he codes this send message to the sender of the command that might be a command block or command minecart or zombie. You can still teleport a zombie. There you go. I can grammar too.
Say, hey, you're not a player. And we'll do return true for that as well.
So instead of instance of player, it would be instance of entity or instance of living entity even. But you can teleport an entity.
Let's go ahead and update it. So I'm just going to go ahead and...
Although at that point, technically, you'd be trying to teleport item frames and things, which would be kind of strange.
Export again. Go over, right click hello world. Go to export. Next. Finish. And we'll overwrite it. And then in my console, I'm just go ahead and reload it.
So a lot of the time you'll see don't reload your server. And that's because most plugins have poor reload handling. They don't expect to be unloaded and then reloaded again. And that's due to plugins doing things on their in their constructors rather than in the on enable and on disable, and not properly unloading their things in on disable. So it's kind of up to the laziness of the programmer. Also, Bucket doesn't have fantastic reloading, whereas something like Sponge actually has a specific like add override kind of thing here. The on enable, on disable will also have like an on reload or something similar to that. So plugins can actually tell when they're being reloaded, which ends up with better reload handling. But some of the time, honestly, it's just laziness on the programmer's part. But it's generally not a good idea to reload your server.
First on in-game.
Although in this case, it's fine.
So now if we type /hello, we've got two different messages. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Now in our console, if we type in hello, we'll get a red message saying, hey, you're not a player.
Oh no.
For this episode,
a lot of the time, again, you can check instance of living entity or entity as well, and a lot of the things that you can do to a player, you can also do to an entity. It really depends on what you want to do, but generally speaking,
that's all I want to show you guys. It's pretty simple. If you go back through it real quick, we'll just go back through our on command. So in our on command, we're saying if the label equals hello, go ahead and do this. This hello command.
Yes, I know what an if statement is. Thank you.
Our plugin.yml commands hello. If this wasn't here, we wouldn't be able to do hello. We wouldn't.
Alternatively, use ACF.
It wouldn't work. But
or a similar framework.
Our if statement here, we do if the sender is a player, we'll go ahead and create a player, and then we'll send them a message. And if they're not a player, we'll go ahead and send them a different message. Pretty basic. And that's all I'm going to do for this episode. I am going to move on to more advanced, more fun things in later episodes.
Oh, more advanced things. All right.
First one to be more of a basic, just getting you.
You have way too much patience. I'm sorry. It's it's not a fantastic tutorial. There's many reasons that it's not great. But I don't know. What do we think? Here. All right, what do we think? I think it's okay for, I don't know. It's okay for a few years ago. This is the kind of tutorial I would see 3 years ago, which, hey, look, it was made 3 years ago. Actually, probably even later. I would probably see it. I would expect to see this more along the lines of 5, 6, even 10 years ago. 3 years ago is a little bit maybe too recent for, opening this in Eclipse and, loading in your Minecraft server jar manually rather than using a system such as Maven. It's, I guess, kind of okay for an intro. The problem is it teaches bad practices, and you're gonna have people going on making plugins with this kind of practice later on, where they're loading in the jar manually, and then you have non-reproducible builds. They'll put it on GitHub and they'll say, hey, everyone check out my plugin, and then nobody can fucking build it because nobody owns your goddamn jar, you moron. I mean, what? Yeah. Patience. I have patience, he says. But I don't know, it's... I want to say it's okay, but it's really not. It has 180,000 views, by the way. That's 180,000 developers that have gone out into the world and said, I can make Bucket plugins, and then shared the code with somebody else, and the other person has slapped them around saying, no, this is not how you do this. So we've had to reteach 180,000 people who've watched this tutorial. Unfortunately. I don't know, it's not fantastic. It's not the kind of tutorial I would want to see as like my first, like, hey, this is how you do Bucket development tutorial. But that's just me. In the meantime, we're gonna take a look at maybe a Python tutorial. Hey, someone mentioned Python earlier. Oh, you're back. I am back. How's it going, budding learner? How are you? Oh, actually, even better. Even better, we're gonna do an Arduino tutorial, because it'll be more fun. I thought you were dead. No, I'm not dead. I'm still alive, I promise. I'm still here. You can learn Arduino in 15 minutes 3 years ago. That seems interesting. Yes, I've been waiting for Python. Oh, okay. Well, we can do Python too. We will do Python, but also Arduino's fun. I know more Arduino than I do Python, so it's easier for me to actually look at these and critique them. I remember when I watched you like 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Hasn't been that long. Oh my god, 5.3 million views though. How you doing? Hey. Hey, Arduino, finally something I can understand. Fantastic. We'll do Arduino and we'll do Python too. Or Python 3.
Arduinos.
Python as well. You know what I mean.
I'm going to talk about what they are, what they can do,
Same here.
and the basics of how to set one up to do simple things like make an LED dimming circuit, control the speed of motors, and even make a simple oscilloscope.
How long is this? 16 minutes? We're going to do this in 16 minutes?
So what is an Arduino?
Okay. Java is not my cup of coffee, pun intended. Wow. Wow. That was terrible, Daniel.
I'm sure you've heard about these things a million times by now, and if you're confused, you have every right to be, because the word Arduino refers to so many different things. Keep watching and I'll explain all of them.
I have a few.
Microcontrollers are integrated circuits that are basically tiny computers. They can run small, simple software programs. They're low-powered enough that they can be powered by a battery for days, but they're fast enough to process data much faster than any human being can think.
Yes, analog read into PWM, that's a lot of stuff. To be fair, PWM is kind of tricky because you have to send the exact specific signal that every component needs. Like if you're doing a motor, it's going to be a different thing than if you're doing an LED.
Arduino is a company in Italy that designs and sells circuit boards that make microcontrollers easy to use. They call these circuit boards Arduinos, and there are a lot of different types of Arduinos. For example, you've got simple Arduino boards like the Arduino Uno, which is cheap and good enough for most projects. You could use an Arduino Uno to control motors, lighting, cameras, or even build a simple robot.
I think you got used to my terrible sense of humor. Nobody's used to your terrible sense of humor, Dad. Nobody.
And then you have more fancy Arduinos with more powerful processors, which have Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and more.
Ethernet? Does Ethernet? Hang on a minute. Does anybody else actually call it Ethernet? I always called it Ethernet. Am I wrong here, or is he wrong? Like, is it Ethernet or Ethernet? I say like, I've never heard it called Ethernet before. That's so strange. What country is this guy from? Canada? Does anybody in Canada call it Ethernet? Well, you don't need too much from the PWM. Analog ride is enough. That's true. How do you earn money? I mean, how are you able to sustain all this? With a job that I have. I don't make money on streaming or YouTube videos or anything. I call it the same way you do. Ethernet, yeah. Ethernet, yeah. Ethernet, yeah. Okay. Is it... I'm very confused.
The company Arduino open sources all of their hardware designs, which means that you don't just have to buy from them. There are countless third-party companies that make their own variants of the Arduino hardware designs. They can't call them Arduinos, but...
Arduino? Wait, what?
Which means that you don't just have to buy from them. There are countless third-party companies that make their own variants of the Arduino hardware designs.
Farduino. Is there an actual Farduino? I need to know. I have to know. Farduino? Farduino hashtag? Hang on a minute. Getting a little sidetracked. I have to. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, there's nothing though, sadly. Wow, that's are these retweets? That's oddly specific. Oh no. He didn't. Any part didn't do it. It's beautiful.
I can't call them Arduinos, but functionally they're the same thing. There are also these things called Arduino shields, which are basically circuit boards that plug into your main Arduino circuit board and let you do more stuff. For example, Adafruit makes shields that let you control motors and servos without having to design motor control circuitry.
God, hang on a minute.
And SparkFun have shields that let you turn your Arduino into a simple cell phone or an MP3 player. Okay, so that was a quick overview of Arduino the company and Arduino hardware, but there's more.
Oh my god, but wait, there's more. I like that. That's good. Hey, why did you leave making videos? I had to pause because I needed to focus on school. So I was making videos all the way up until I started going back to school, or going to college, I guess. And then I had to put it on pause because I was taking like 16 to 20 credit hours per semester because I'm fucking crazy. Yeah, but I'm back. We're doing this again because I'm actually almost done with college now, so we're good. Yay. And also I already have a job after, which say I'm getting a job, I already have a job, which will pay me very well. So I will continue doing this. Don't worry.
There's also the Arduino software development.
You can't call them Arduino, so you watch me. Yeah.
Environment. And this is what makes Arduino good for beginners. Historically, if you wanted to program microcontrollers, you'd have to type out a lot of binary and memorize a lot of hard-to-remember registers and instructions. Then you'd have to use special programming hardware with custom-made cables to upload your program onto your microcontroller.
He's correct. Yeah. I mean, you can still do that. I have... these things are programmed using the Arduino IDE, using the Arduino language, not necessarily the IDE, but so these guys. This is an AT Tiny 85, and it's programmed using the Tiny programmer, this AVR right here, which plugs in via USB. It's a similar concept. It's really just the Arduino programming language in a tinier chip. It's adorable. What are you studying? I am studying cybersecurity and programming. Yay, go me. I want to get a job that I can't sustain myself. Just so that I can sustain myself. I love computers, but They are expensive, I agree. Intel Studio all the way. No. Visual Studio Code.
Arduino, the company, got rid of all of that.
ATtiny10 is cute. The ATtiny10 is fucking adorable. And also really difficult to program because it's fucking adorable.
They created software that works on Windows, Mac, and Linux, which makes uploading your code as simple as connecting a USB cable and clicking a button. They created a programming language that lets you configure all of the Arduino hardware products in the same way.
And honestly, it's fantastic. And also, is it good or nah? I don't know what I'll study in college. Yeah, going to college is good. I learned this the hard way. That's why I went back to college and actually finished it. SE or CS? Computer science. High voltage programmer, yeah. Yeah,
and although
exactly.
it's not as simple as learning Python, the Arduino software is one of the easiest programming experiences you'll ever have. Okay, so...
That's true, yeah. Arduino is super, super simple. It's like C++, but made easy. My parents cannot pay all the time for my internet and computers. That's true.
hopefully that clarifies what Arduino means in different contexts. Now, when people say they used an Arduino for their project, they're probably talking about the Arduino Uno. It's highly unlikely that you'll outgrow one anytime soon, so it's the perfect Arduino hardware for this beginner's tutorial.
Without a high voltage programmer, you're losing too many pins. Yeah, because the ATtiny10 is like 6 pins in total instead of 8. And if you're not using a high voltage programmer, you're losing, I think, 1 or 2 of those pins, which knocks you down from 6 to 5 or even 4. Actually, no, you're already knocked down to 5 because one of those is the reset pin, which is used for programming anyway. So you're already at 5, and then you're knocked down to 4 or even 3 pins that you can use. Unless you're doing something super simple. ATtiny10 is not usually a good idea. Do you have any tips for helping me get a job? Yeah, go to college. Like, seriously. You can't get a job without... Or you can't get a good paying job without going to college. You can get jobs, but they're all going to suck.
You can get them from Amazon cheaply, and if you have the money, I recommend buying one of the many Uno kits out there where you get a lot of different pieces of hardware to play with.
The Arduino kits are a lot of fun. Actually, I have one that sits underneath my desk that I play with on occasion. It's a lot of fun to play with, and it's totally worth the purchase, even if it's like 50 or 60 bucks, because it's worth playing with. And so when I say go to college, what I mean is, yes, go to and actually finish college, because the highest paying job that I got without a college education, without a college degree, was about $22 an hour. Now, excuse me one. Hopefully you didn't see that. Sorry. I snizzed. So, yeah, without a college degree, the highest paying job I got was $22 an hour, and that was pretty rare. Usually I got like anywhere from 12 to 14 US dollars an hour, which in this city, I mean, rent costs about, for a small apartment will cost you about, I don't know, $1,600 a month, give or take, which, you know, $12 to $14 an hour is just barely enough to pay for, and that's if you don't want to eat. So it's, yeah. With a college degree, though, the first job I got right out of the bat, like the first people, like they said, "Oh, you're going to college? Let us offer you a job." It was $28 an hour, a little over $28 an hour, and that's starting. That goes up from there. Yeah, it's kind of insane when you think about it. Get a college education. Seriously. Oh, man. In my country, even if you have a college degree, you can't get a job because of all the refugees. You're from India, I bet. I don't know. Are you? Oh, Lebanon. Makes sense. I think. I don't know. It's difficult to say. Politics are hard. $50 to $60. My 1K eBay orders, say it's not a lot. I'm sorry. What do you buy on eBay for $1,000? What do you buy on eBay for $1,000? Jesus.
Okay, so you've got your Arduino Uno, The first thing I want to do is get you familiar with the hardware. You'll often hear Arduinos being called microcontrollers, and that's technically incorrect. Arduinos are circuit boards that have microcontroller chips on them, but they also have a lot of other stuff on there too. Let's take a quick tour.
Yeah, they do. They have they have an external crystal oscillator for. I'm not exactly sure what the external oscillator is for because the AT Mega chip actually has an internal oscillator at 16 megahertz. The external one is also 16 megahertz, so I assume it's for the other components that interact with the chip, possibly. It might be for that USB bus. I'm thinking possibly. That's my best guess. It's so good to talk to you like this. Well, thank you. It's awesome to kind of just talk to people on occasion. Like, hey, this is the YouTuber I follow. Hey, I can talk to them on Twitch. It's awesome. Or on YouTube, I guess. Not 1K orders, but 1K is the count of orders. Oh, I'm sorry. That's probably 1,000 orders on eBay. That's probably still about the same, isn't it? Please don't end the stream. I'm not going to right now.
This is the microcontroller. Arduino Unos use a series of microcontrollers called Atmega AVRs. They're made by a company called Atmel. You can buy just the bare chips on their own for about $1, but then you'd have to do a lot of soldering. Connected to the microcontroller is...
You wouldn't have to do a lot of soldering, but it would be a giant pain in the ass, yeah. That's why you buy the Arduino boards, or Arduino knockoffs, or whatever you want. There are, for example, 2 megas, Pro Micro and Serial Programmer on my desk right next to my hand. You don't even want to know. What do you work as? I work as a technical contractor. Same question.
It's a crystal resonator. This controls how fast the microcontroller is running. I have a separate tutorial on resonators and oscillators which you might find useful. Now, in order to upload the software you create to the main microcontroller...
That's strange. Again, the 18 Mega actually has an internal crystal oscillator inside of it. I say internal, inside of it, internal. So I'm not sure what the external one is for. It seems strange. What's that though? Technical contractor? It's a person that contracts out their work, but a technical contractor is someone that contracts out technical work. So things like computers.
There's actually another microcontroller.
Actually, technically, I'm an employee now, or am an employee. The business contracts out work, but we are employees of the business rather than contractors.
This chip is what lets you connect your USB cable to the Arduino board and communicate via USB.
Yeah, I figured that was the USB chip.
It lets you upload your programs onto the main microcontroller, and once you have your program running, this chip is what allows you to send messages back and forth between your computer and your Arduino.
I've cleaned this room like an hour ago, so that didn't take long to mess up my table. Yeah, mine's kind of messed up too, sadly. And I honestly just cleaned this like yesterday. Hey, you have the same mic as me. Yeah, the AT2035. The 2020 is similar, but does not have the features that this one does. Maybe 2 hours, yeah. Fair enough.
This is extremely important for debugging. One great thing about Arduinos is that you can power them purely from your USB cable. But if you don't want your project always attached to a computer, you can just use an external 9-volt DC power source with a barrel jack over here. The Uno has a built...
Depends on the Arduino. It's not always 9 volts. Sometimes they are... So the range of them is what matters. Generally with the Arduino Unos, you have a range from 5 volts to 12 volts, I believe. So 9 volts is within that range. That's fine. But with the Arduino Leonardos, for example, the Arduino Leonardos take a voltage range from 7 to 12 or 7 to 11 volts, which is a little odd, but it means you can't really power it from the same 5 volts. 9 volts is a safe option for these because it generally powers all of them, no matter what manufacturer or what Arduino board that you have, as long as it's an official Arduino. The unofficial Arduinos will or the Arduino-like boards will generally have a power range from 3.3 volts to 6 volts or to 12 volts, depending. Some of them don't take more than 5 volts though, so if you pump 9 volts into them, you're gonna kill them. You will let the magic smoke out. Really depends. Restream bot, are you a human actually? No, it is not. I've seen a guy who unsoldered the USB socket and started a cable to power it. It works. Just look at what the regulator is on the board and you'll know what you can feed it. Yeah, exactly. It's hard. It's not very difficult. You just have to look at the specs. All of the Arduinos will come with a data sheet. Just get used to reading data sheets.
In voltage regulator that'll reduce the voltage to 5 volts. And if you ever want to reboot your Arduino's program, you've got a reset button.
Not all Arduinos have a reset button, but most do.
If you have time, it's worth studying the Arduino Uno schematic. Don't worry if it looks complicated. You don't need to understand most of it. I'm just trying to get you to understand what the Arduino designers did. They took an off-the-shelf microcontroller that requires a lot of extra parts to get working, and they put all of those things together in an easy-to-use way. And if you choose to learn more about electronics, you can create circuit boards like this too.
Or look at a video. Yeah, I mean, the problem with videos is that they're kind of slow. You can't control F a video. You can control F a datasheet though. Hey, it's an alpha woof.
So that's what's under the hood.
An alpha woof, even. Hello.
Next, let's talk about the pin connectors. Over here, you have the power pins. If you want, you can connect wires here to other circuitry with 5 volts or 3.3 volts.
So with the 5 volt pins, what's interesting about the 5 volt pins is that you can actually supply 5 volts to those pins, but they bypass the voltage regulator. The VN does not. So if you supply voltage to VN, the power will be regulated and it will be cleaned using the regulator and also the capacitors that are attached to the regulator. However, if you power it through the 5 volt pin, then it will bypass the regulator and it might explode things if it goes too high. So be aware of that. But you can also take voltage from the 5 volt pin. It will supply voltage out through the 5 volt pin as well.
Just make sure that whatever you power doesn't draw more than a few milliamps.
A lot of extra parts. Look for a minimal Arduino schematic. Yeah, there's not a lot of parts that you need to go with an Arduino or the Amtel 18 megas. Do you still do hacking? Yes. I did a stream fairly recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, that was just hack the box stuff.
A few LEDs is okay, but a large motor would be an Arduino-no.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, that physically hurt. Oh God. Oh God. I'm dying. Oh why? Oh no. Oh, that killed me. I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. Oh Lord. Okay. Well, that was the thing that just happened.
You suck!
TX and RX is for sending and receiving serial data. You could use this port to send and receive data from a GPS module, Bluetooth modules, Wi-Fi modules, and more.
The TX and RX is for... Jesus. The TX and RX, or transmit and receive, is generally used with the serial, either hardware serial or software serial, or I guess hardware serial, sorry, not necessarily software, hardware serial components class in the Arduino Uno. That was worse than my puns.
Pins 2 to 13 are for digital inputs and outputs.
Anything on this image in here, anything with a squiggly is PWM.
Normally when people think of binary, you think of just spitting out zeros and ones. But with most microcontroller pins, you can actually activate a third state and use them as a digital input. So you can use this pin as an output where it spits out 5 volts for a digital 1, or 0 volts for a digital 0, or you can internally configure the Arduino to expect a voltage on the pin, and that voltage could be interpreted as a 1 or a 0. It's a system called tri-state logic, and it's worth reading up on, but Arduino makes it really easy to change between inputs and outputs in software.
It's super nice, yeah. The Arduino language is very easy. Let's check out this print screen here. I don't call this a lot of extra parts, Dan says. They're still unnecessary components, yeah. Yeah, you don't need a ton of extra parts to run an Arduino, but it's nice to have. Like, there are a lot of nice to haves, like, again, the voltage regulator, in case you accidentally explode your Arduino. Can you mentor me on email? I'm really confused about my career. I'm not a good mentor. I'm really not. Like, you can email me, sure, but one, there's no guarantee I'll email back because I get a lot of emails and I miss some sometimes. But two, I'm not a good mentor or teacher at all. Sorry. I did try a couple of times, but I'm not very good at it.
Here we have 6 analog input pins, and these are used to measure continuous voltages anywhere from 0 volts to 5 volts.
Now, the difference between these and the PWM pins is that these analog inputs are actually analog, whereas the PWM are digital pretending to be analog. There's a difference in there. Oh, gotta go. Be right back. Enjoy, Dan.
I'll talk more about this later in the video. Finally, some of the pins have a tilde in front of them, and this means that you can use them to output pulse width modulated square waves, which I'll also show later in the video. Okay, enough about the hardware. Most of the work you do with your Arduino will actually be in the software. So start out by downloading the Arduino software from arduino.cc.
So this is what got me in the thumbnail is the Arduino IDE. I don't necessarily recommend the Arduino IDE. It's kind of difficult to use. They're coming out with a new one, which looks a lot easier and a lot friendlier. It's based on Chromium because it's an Electron app. But I personally use VS Code with Platform IO. Platform IO is really fucking easy to use and doesn't require extra steps really to install various things like the AVRs for the various other Arduino types that I have. If you're just programming like a single Arduino Uno, the Arduino IDE is fine. But if you want to do stuff that's more advanced, like the AT-Tinies or like what are these things even called? New something, Nuo, or I forget what they're called. The 3.3 volt ones with the AMD processors. Those ones are more powerful. They're a little bit more expensive depending on which one you get, but you can't really program them in the Arduino IDE. Well, you can, but it's a giant pain in the ass to do. Honestly, if you're doing anything more advanced than just the Arduino Unos, just call it AVRs, yeah. If you're doing anything that's more advanced than just a single leg Uno, then I would recommend using VS Code and Platform IO. You can do it in purely VS Code without Platform IO, but it's, again, a giant pain in the ass to set up. Platform IO just makes it super easy, and it's free. So it's just a free extension that you install. It's nice.
During the installation, you can expect a lot of prompts like this to show up, where you're asked if you want to install various drivers. I
would still recommend installing the Arduino IDE because there have been the occasion where the Arduino IDE has come in handy for, say, resetting or setting from a factory default a device. So I have these Wi-Fi chips, these Arduino Wi-Fi chips with, again, an AVR programmer. And out of the factory, they don't work with Platform IO for some reason. The AVR, the programmer that the Platform IO is using is incompatible with the default factory, I guess, or something. I'm not sure why. But if you program it first in the Arduino IDE and then program it in the Platform IO, it works. Don't know why. This is the cheap stuff you get off eBay or Amazon. So to be fair, who knows what the hell they did to them.
Just say yes to everything. Once you're done, connect the Arduino to your computer with a USB cable. Next, start up the Arduino development environment. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that the software tries to connect to the right type of Arduino. Go to Tools,
yeah, because if you don't, you'll explode your Arduino.
Boards,
or it just won't work.
And we're going to be using an Arduino Uno. Next, we have to make sure that the Arduino environment can actually connect and communicate with your Arduino. Go to Tools, Ports, and select the COM or serial port where your Arduino is connected. If there isn't an Arduino listed here, you may have a problem with your drivers, or you can try plugging your Arduino into a different USB port.
If you're on Windows, don't forget to restart your PC before you start plugging in Arduinos, because the Windows is weird and COM ports are weird.
The Arduino software has a ton of fantastic, easy-to-follow demo programs, and studying these is the best place to start learning how to code. Arduino calls them sketches, which is just a fancy name for a program that you upload to your Arduino.
The main issue I have with the Arduino IDE is that it doesn't allow for complicated projects. You basically have one file, and that's your sketch. It's not expecting you to create like sprawling code bases with it, which sometimes you need to do. If you're doing anything that requires more than one file, then you're going to need to use something other than the Arduino IDE, because it's a pain in the ass to use if you're doing more than one file with.
Let's start with an example where we measure voltages that are being fed into the Arduino.
Also, some time ago, there was problems with cheap CH340 on USB 3 ports. Yeah, that's also true. Generally, you want to plug things into a USB 2 port, because USB 3 ports kind of have issues sometimes with non-USB 3 stuff, and Arduinos are simple and they're not expecting a USB 3 port.
Go to File, Examples, Basics, Analog Read Serial. All the Arduino examples contain instructions on how to set up the hardware. This one is telling us, attach the center pin of a potentiometer to pin A0 and the outside pins to +5 volts and ground. Okay, let's do that. A 1K or a 10K potentiometer will work great for this. We're going to be using it as a voltage divider to create a voltage anywhere from 0 to 5 volts.
So the question is, why do you need this plugged into ground? Or, yeah, basically the main question is, why do you need this plugged into ground? Well, the thing about resistors, because a potentiometer is basically a variable resistor. The thing about resistors is that, and the Arduino can only measure a potential and voltage. It can't measure a resistance. So if you just plug a resistor from 5 volts into a 0, it's going to read something, a floating value between 0 and 1, and it isn't always accurate, and it isn't always the same every time. So what's going to happen is you're just going to get some random values, and they're never going to be the same, and nothing's ever going to happen. But if you have a reference to ground, which this is plugged into ground, if you have a reference to ground, then you have what's called a voltage divider, which then allows you to measure the change in voltage rather than a resistance. So Arduinos, again, can only measure change in voltage. They can't measure resistance. So if you plug a resistor or a potentiometer or a light sensor, which again is a resistor, if you plug those into a 0, you're not going to get any readable value off of them. You also need to plug a resistor, or plug the thing that you're measuring, into ground as well, in order to get a voltage division, and then you can actually measure the resistance, I guess, or the output voltage of the item that you're using. That's why a lot of times when you see like a light sensor plugged into an Arduino, there's usually a 5K or 10K resistor also attached to that, hooked into ground, because you're creating a voltage divider. And again, Arduinos can't measure resistance, they can only measure change in voltage. So you're creating a voltage divider in order to force a change in voltage from the resistance. Also, hola, Nacho Lezo. It's a voltage divider, that's why you need ground, yeah. Yeah.
Make sure you've watched my voltage divider tutorial if you don't understand how that works. Every Arduino
This is pretty good so far, though. I like it.
program will have two main areas, the setup and the loop. The setup area is where you configure your Arduino to do certain things for the duration of your program. It could be information on which pins are inputs and which are outputs, but in this case we're telling it to send serial data to our computer at 9,600 bits per second, which is a pretty standard data rate.
Bits per second, or bauds,
for these situations.
It's also called a baud
The
rate.
loop is the area of code that repeats over and over again for as long as the Arduino has power to it. This line will measure the voltage on pin A0 and store the value of it in a temporary place in memory that we're calling sensor value. Sensor value is an int, or integer, meaning it's a whole number. Once we've copied the analog voltage reading to sensor value, the command serial.println will transmit that value from our Arduino through the USB cable to our computer, and we can view it. Click Upload. It'll compile the sketch and upload it to your Arduino. Now hit the reset button.
Yeah, so far so good.
Now go to Tools.
Again, this is simple. Don't expect to create a sprawling code base from the Arduino IDE because you won't be able to. But so far so good.
Serial monitor. You should see a bunch of numbers flying by. As you vary the potentiometer from 0 to 5 volts, you should see a number on screen from 0 to 1023. This is because internally, the Arduino represents the analog voltages it measures with a 10-bit number, which can be from 0 to 1023.
An unsigned 10-bit number specifically, but yes.
The number scales linearly with the voltage, so 2.5 volts would be halfway down at 512.
Also, the variance in voltages that's reading there, I don't know if you saw that when he showed it at first. Let's see, where was that?
Internally, the Arduino represents, you should see a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, you see how it's 1014, 16, 15, 16. It's just flying back and forth. That's because that's because of noise or transients in the signal. And so what you want to do with pretty much anything that you have, but what you particularly want to do with something like these potentiometers is you want to have some code that determines what maybe the average value is, or if you have a potentiometer that steps, it's super nice to pull it at like twice the rate that you would normally want. And then usually what you would do from there is you would see, hey, is this more, or is this more or less than what I was getting? And then you say, okay, well, move it up or down. There's some interesting math and logic behind this particular issue where you have transients in the line that say, oh, it's 1015 or 1016 or 1014, where you kind of get an average value rather than the value, or using the value that you're getting right then and there, because then that could introduce weird flickering issues. If you say wanted to hook this up to a LED, you'd have some weird flickering issues with the LED if you just use this code straight. Again, you kind of generally want to just average that.
Flying by. As you vary the potentiometer from 0 to 5 volts, you should see a number on screen from 0 to 1023. This is because internally, the Arduino represents the analog voltages it measures with a 10-bit number, which can be from 0 to 1023.
Mm-hmm.
The number
Again,
scales
unsigned.
linearly with the voltage, so 2.5 volts would be halfway down at 512. You can use these formulas to convert from analog tick values to real-world voltages and vice versa.
Again, if you don't have if you have a resistor and you're measuring resistance, but you don't have a nice little breakout board that does all the measuring and calculations for you, what you'll have to do is you'll have to create your own voltage divider using your own resistors. And at that point, you have to look at what the output of your component is, and then see what kind of resistor you would want to use in order to divide that in half. So you'd have to do the calculations yourself. Breakout boards generally already have done the calculations, and so you just have to read them in. That's why breakout boards are super popular with Arduinos. But if you have to do it yourself, then you'll have to do the calculations yourself. Generally speaking, for example, if you have a photoresistor or a light sensor, you'll want a... There was a car. If you have a light sensor or photoresistor, you'll want generally a 5K resistor because they have about a 10K impedance.
Now close the serial monitor and go to Tools, Serial Plotter. Now you can get a graph of the voltage your potentiometer is creating over time. It's basically a very simple low bandwidth oscilloscope.
Kind of is, isn't it? I didn't even think about it like that. Oh god. A cat
Let's try
commercial break.
another experiment where we build a simple LED dimmer. Go to File, Examples, Analog, Analog in Out Serial. The instructions for the potentiometer are the same as before. It also says to connect an LED from digital pin 9 to ground. Note that it is implied that you will put a resistor in series with the LED.
Yes.
Pins on an Arduino can't supply much current, any more than about 20 milliamps, and you risk permanently destroying that pin.
Yes.
I have detailed tutorials on LEDs and resistor values, but for now let's just use a 1K resistor attached to ground.
Again, you can kind of use whatever resistors that you like. The higher the resistance, the dimmer the LED. But the lower the resistance, the more issues may occur with damaging components.
The other side goes to the cathode of an LED, and the LED's anode goes to pin 9. We've already talked about what an int is, but this const int means that the label analog out pin will always translate to the number 9 throughout the rest of the program.
Generally with consts, I don't tend to use consts I guess, yeah. I don't tend to use consts in my Arduino projects simply because I use defines more often. But consts are useful when you're optimizing your code, because a C++ compiler will take that const and it will just run with it. And it ends up, your code ends up being more efficient and faster. It's not a huge performance increase. And again, optimizing before your code base is actually complete, it is not good. It's the road to hell. However, if you are done with your project and want to speed up your code a little bit, add a little bit of performance increase, you can have your input values in your functions be a const. You can have your values. You can have your values in your classes be a const, and generally you want your classes, or you want your values in your classes to be final or const, no matter what programming language you're in, because that tells other people, or the ones that you input through the constructors, you want those to be final or const, because that tells people who are using the class, or yourself later, who are using the class, that, hey, don't change this, it should be static, or constant, I should say, not static. It should be constant. Const is useful in two things. One, yeah, you get a small performance increase from it, but two, more importantly, it tells people don't modify this, or don't try to modify this. But again, more often than not, I use defines rather than consts in Arduino.
For example here, saying analog write 9, output value wouldn't be very clear. Like, what the hell is the 9 for? Instead, we're declaring analog out pin to be a place in the Arduino's memory that always stores the fixed constant number 9. So when we write other pieces of code, we don't have to memorize which pin numbers we're using for different things.
The Arduino also has memory in it as well, which you can use. It's not the internal memory, it's actually a memory that you can use. What is it? I forget what the class is. But there's a class that you can use to store kind of permanent memory in the Arduino as well, which can be helpful for this sort of thing depending on how you want to do it. It's called progmem.
It's not a big deal right now, but this becomes more important when we have programs that use a lot of different pins. Sensor value and output value are non-constant integer numbers, which means they can change value during the operation of the program. The term for this in programming is a variable. On the Arduino platform, an int variable can hold a number anywhere between minus 32,768 and plus 32,767.
See, so far with this one, it's actually been kind of clear what the audience is.
The setup is the same as before, and once again we're using the analog read function to measure the voltage on a certain pin, which turns out to be pin A0. We store that value in sensor value. Now, we know that the Arduino internally represents analog voltages with numbers from 0 to 1023, but the analog write function only accepts values from 0 to 255. So we use the map function here to linearly scale sensor value down to values between 0 and 255.
You can also do this manually yourself. The map function makes this easier to use because it makes more sense. You're mapping the sensor value from 0 to 1023 to 0 to 255. That makes sense. However, it is technically more efficient because you're not using jumps and you're not using these branch if statements. it's technically more efficient to do this yourself instead. If you know for a fact that your values aren't going to be null, or your values aren't going to be weird things all over the place, and they're going to be in the range that you specify, you can do this yourself and gain a small performance boost. It's not that difficult. It's just a, I don't know, plus equals or a division or something, divide equals, get something. It's not difficult. It's kind of basic algebra. I would just have to come up with it off the top of my head, and I can't do that. But it's not hard to recreate this map function, and technically it's more efficient. It's just that the map function is easier to use and thus easier to read.
Then the analog write function takes the number stored in output value and uses it to control the voltage on analog output pin, which is in fact pin number 9. The serial printing stuff is similar to what we had before, and at the end of each loop, the delay function will make the Arduino pause execution of all code for a specific number of milliseconds. Once again, we click Upload, hit Reset on the Arduino, and now we have a system that can control the brightness of an LED with a potentiometer.
The mapping from 0 to 1023 to 0 to 255 actually also reduces the transients in the line. So you're not going to notice that weird flickering issue with this particular code because you're reducing your range. So in 1014, 1015, 1016 is going to be about the same value in, it's going to be probably what, I don't know, 55, 56. It's going to be basically all the same number in your mapped value. Hey, lights, yeah.
Now, you're probably thinking, so what? You can do that without the Arduino. Well, let's probe the output of pin 9 with an oscilloscope to see what's really happening here. We've got a pulse width modulated square wave. We can control it with a potentiometer, and it's very precise. Now instead...
It is actually surprisingly precise. The Arduino is really good at making precise square waves for the 18 mega.
Instead of an LED, let's
There's a
control
PWM,
something
yep.
else. Let's take this part of the circuit from my classic pulse width modulation tutorial, and now we'll be able to control a motor digitally instead of a sometimes glitchy 555 circuit.
Hey, don't mock my 555 circuits. They're good for what they do, goddammit. I like my timers. Fuck off.
So you might be thinking that it's weird that an Arduino function called analog write is in fact controlling a pulse width modulated square wave.
And here's where we come into fake analog versus real analog. Fake analog. Real analog, whatever, you get the idea.
Well, the idea is that you would use an RC low-pass filter to convert that square wave into a continuous analog voltage, and I have separate tutorials on how to do this.
Or you could just use PWM naturally, because honestly a lot of things just use PWM anyway, including DC motors.
Once you've looked at a few examples and understand how they work, you can delete pieces of code and modify existing pieces of code to create whatever you want.
Just please don't connect the motor to the pin directly. Yeah, pretty much.
Here I've gotten rid of the potentiometer control and serial stuff, and I created a loop that turns a motor off for 1 second, turns the motor on at 50% speed for 1 second, and then goes full speed for 1 second. So you can see how by reading voltages from sensors and writing code to control motors and servos, an Arduino can easily become the brains of a simple robot.
You can connect specific types of motors to an Arduino. There are ones that are made kind of for these types of projects that work really well with Arduinos. They're not high-powered, though.
In fact, you can get kits to build Arduino-based robots for as little as $74.
As little as $74, that's actually quite a lot.
So those were just 2 easy examples.
Arduino Grande. We have to look this up. I need to know. Yes. Is this available? Can I buy this? I need this in my life. Project on Instructables. No, I need to buy this though. How do I buy this? Where do I get this from? Oh, you can like 3D print it and stuff or whatever. I don't care about that though. Like I need an Arduino Grande for myself. I guess they're laser cutting it out. No, someone make me an Arduino Grande. I will pay you. I need one though.
Examples of what you can do with an Arduino, but you can do so much more, and there are tutorials all over the internet for them. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video useful, please check out my sponsor Audible. Audible is a company.
Hey, Audible. Who doesn't love Audible? Okay, so there we go. A little bit lower. Yeah, I like that. It was pretty good. Overall, it was worth the watch. Yes. There's a couple of things that I would just, modify. I guess a couple of things I would amend. Say like, you could use this or you could use this, but generally that was really good. I like that. Oh, don't forget our Python tutorials as well. Well, hello. Yeah, we'll take a look at the Python tutorials too. Where's my YouTube? Yeah. You see, even Dan agrees. It was a pretty decent video. Alright, let's see here. Jesus, 4 hours. Why are the top 2 results for this thing are like 4 hours and 6 hours long? What is wrong with you people? Why? It's like a whole Udemy course. It is. That's the problem. Alright. Looks like we've got this. So let's see what this is.
Hey everyone!
What can you do with Python? The 3 main applications.
If you're thinking of learning Python, or if you started learning it recently, you might be wondering, what can I use Python for exactly?
I'll tell you what you can use Python for exactly, but let's see what he has to say first.
Well, that's actually a tricky question to answer because there are so many applications of Python. But over time, I've seen that there are 3 main popular applications for Python.
Let me guess, is it machine learning?
Development, data science, including machine learning, data analysis, and data visualization.
It's true.
And scripting. I'm going to talk about
for scripting. That's what it is. Hey, look, you got it, Dan. He knows exactly what you're thinking.
Each of them in turn in this video. I'm also going to mention game development, embedded applications.
Let's not develop games in Python, please.
And desktop applications by the end of this video.
Let's also not do embedded applications on Python, please. No, that doesn't sound like a good idea.
And as usual, I'm going to put a more detailed version of this outline in the comment section below, so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to. Okay, first of all, let's talk about web development.
Also, I'm not sure that I would use Python for web development. I know Django exists and things, but
Web frameworks like Django and Flask, which are based on Python, have recently become very popular for web development.
Python is the main thing for Raspberry Pis. That's because it's simple, not because it's good.
I
mean, yes, Python is good, but it's not really designed for that kind of task.
Frameworks basically help you create server-side code. That's of course the code that runs on your server, as opposed to the code that runs on your users' devices.
Disclaimer, this video is going to be full of my opinions, and my opinions are not necessarily shared by everybody else. So if you get triggered, sorry.
Which is front-end code. But wait, you might say, why do I need a web framework in the first place? Well, that's because using a web framework makes it easier to build common backend logic. So this includes things like mapping different URLs to different chunks of Python code, dealing with databases, and generating HTML files.
Replace Python with Java, replace Python with PHP, replace Python with, I don't know, literally any language, and it still works. I wouldn't use Python for this.
Else users see on their browsers. And which Python web framework should you use if you're just getting started? Well, Django and Flask are two of the most popular Python web frameworks, so I'd recommend using either one if you're just getting started.
Again, replace this whole thing with any other language and it still works. Yes, you can use any language that you want, including JavaScript for backend server applications. I just wouldn't. There's a few languages that are specifically designed for server applications, and Python isn't really one of them. Neither is JavaScript. Hey, JS, I know, right? Yeah. I hope I'm not going to learn too much because I don't need Python in my life. Honestly, Python's really good, just for specific applications. It's the same thing with any other language. You have to have the right tool for your toolbox. Python is a tool. You use Python for particular applications. You use Java for particular applications. You use C++ for particular applications. You use PHP for particular applications. You technically, yes, can use whatever language you want for whatever you want. But there are applications that one language works better than another. And a lot of developers get lost in that. So a lot of the mistake that I see with a lot of developers is they'll say, well, I know this language, so this is the language we're going to use. It's not necessarily the best language to use. Basically, a bunch of JavaScript developers came up and said, well, I know JavaScript, so why don't we use JavaScript for server applications? And now we have Node. And it's not necessarily the best language to use for server applications. So it's difficult to say what language is best for what thing, but there is a particular genre of things that a language is better in, or a genre of things that a particular language is not so good in. It really depends on you, and it also depends on, the team that you're working with. It more so depends on the team that you're working with and you, and also depends on what you're doing. So you can't just use one language for everything. You can, but you shouldn't.
Now, Flask is a smaller framework, and it has fewer components built into the framework itself. And that actually makes Flask a little bit simpler to learn than Django, and a little bit more flexible. On the other hand, Django has more components built into the framework itself. For example, it has a very specific way to deal with databases, but with...
Interesting. It's glitching heavily for you. It is fine on my end, so I apologize. Sorry, Dan.
With Flask, you need to choose what kind of database you want to use and how you want to interact with that database exactly. So I think Flask is a better choice if you want more control over what your code is going to look like exactly. And Django is probably a better choice if you're just more focused on building a straightforward application like a news site or a blog.
So again, tool, job. You have several tools in your toolbox, several languages that you know, and you pick the tool for the job. What I would use Python for is scripting, prototyping, and currently machine learning, but that's only because machine learning applications are all on Python. However, more importantly than that, if you're the only person on your project, great. Use Python for scripting, use it for prototyping, use it for machine learning. But if you're not, use the language everybody else knows. Don't use the language that's best because that's not the language that everybody else knows, right? If you're working with a bunch of engineers, which I do a lot, then they're going to know Python, and that's it. Use Python. Doesn't matter what it is, use Python. It doesn't matter that it's a web server, it doesn't matter that it's a database backend, whatever, use Python. I know it's not the most efficient, it's not the best, but use it, because that's what everybody else knows. That's what everybody on your team knows, and then they can help you with it.
And I found a pretty good article about the difference between these two, so I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. Okay, let's go to the next topic, machine learning. Let's first quickly review what machine learning is. And to explain what machine learning is, I think the best way to do that would be to give you a simple example. So let's say you want to develop a program that recognizes what's in a picture. So for example, given this picture, you want your program to recognize that it's a dog, and given this other picture, you want your program to recognize that it's a table.
Hot dog? Not hot dog. Not hot dog, not hot dog.
Given this problem,
I don't know if you've watched, if you have or haven't watched Silicon Valley, but I'm sorry. Sorry if you haven't, that just went way over your head.
you might say, well, maybe we can just write some code to do that. So for example, if there are a lot of light brown pixels in the picture, then maybe we can say that it's a dog. And if there are a lot of, straight edges,
That surely is a cat. Indeed.
let's say you figure out a way to, detect edges in a picture. And if there are a lot of straight edges in a picture, then it's a table instead of a dog. But this kind of approach gets tricky pretty quickly. And, the reason is, for example, what if there's a white dog in the picture with no brown hair? Or what if there's a table in the picture, but it only shows the round parts of the table? And that's where machine learning comes in. Machine learning typically implements an algorithm that automatically detects a pattern in the given inputs.
We say automatically, but it's more complicated than that and requires calculus, which I don't have.
So in this example, you can give, say, 1,000 pictures of a dog and 1,000 pictures of a table to a machine learning algorithm and say, these are the pictures of a dog and these are pictures of a table.
I can sort of half explain it, the more technical details of a machine learning algorithm in not so complicated math, but essentially you're emulating a brain. You have neurons, and these neurons are attached much like a brain. Again, if you've ever seen or heard of a brain in like 8th grade science, then you'll know what this is. You have neurons, and you have these neurons attached to each other using links, and you have, this input, and it triggers certain neurons to fire, and then it creates pathways that are stronger, and the neurons build strength, and it will then be able to say, like, for sure, this is or is not this thing, because it triggers the certain pathways that that work. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of a half explanation that doesn't involve high-level math. Lagging so hard on YouTube and Twitch. The fuck is going on? Let's see. Dan, I'm pretty sure it's just the fact that you live out in the middle of fucking nowhere. But we can test this and see. We have right here. Look at that. Beautiful. What is this? Perfect. You can actually see. Boy, you can't see my face at all. Look, you can actually see right there. And that was a thing that just drove by, and I didn't need it. My apologies. Dan, I think it's just you. And it was really hard to see because of the giant fucking glare off my phone. But I think it's just you.
And it will learn the difference between the two. So when you give it a new picture of either a dog or a table, it will be able to recognize which one it is. Now you can use the same idea to apply machine learning to things like recommendation systems. So think YouTube, Amazon, and Netflix, and face recognition and voice recognition, among other applications. Popular machine learning algorithms you might have heard about include neural networks, deep learning, support vector machines, and random forests.
Technically, all of these are neural networks, but yes.
You can actually use any of these algorithms to solve the picture labeling problem I explained earlier.
You can, but the classification... So the whole issue of the pictures is a classification problem. Generally, you want a simple classifier rather than a random forest or deep learning or support vector or adversarial network or anything like that. Like if you're just doing classification, you just want a simple classification network, not all of these fancy things.
Use
generally
any of these algorithms to solve the picture labeling problem I explained earlier. Now, there are a few popular machine learning libraries and frameworks for Python.
Let me guess, TensorFlow?
Two of the most popular ones are called scikit-learn and TensorFlow. Scikit-learn
I'll be honest, I've never heard of scikit-learn.
comes with some of the most popular machine learning
I think it's scared of me. It's suddenly running fine. Yes. Be afraid.
algorithms built in. I mentioned some of them earlier. And TensorFlow is more of a low-level library that allows you to build custom machine learning algorithms. So if you're just getting started with a machine learning project, I'd recommend that you first start with scikit-learn. And then if you start running into efficiency issues, then I'd consider looking into TensorFlow. And how
You're going to run into efficiency issues because it's fucking machine learning.
should you go about learning machine learning? Well, personally, I'd recommend that you first get started with either Stanford's or Caltech's machine learning course. And after that, I'd practice what you've learned from there with this website called Kaggle. It's a website where people
Kaggle is awesome.
compete to build a machine learning algorithm to a given problem, and they have some nice tutorials for beginners too.
Yeah, but that's not the point of Kaggle. You go to Kaggle for data. Like, Kaggle is like the resource of giant data dumps specifically like specialized for machine learning algorithms.
Okay, what about data analysis and data visualization? To help you understand what these might look like in real life, let me just give you a simple example here. So let's say you're, a data analyst working for a company, and that company sells some products online. And as a data analyst, you might draw a graph like this using Python.
Yeah, I mean, Python's really good for data analysis as well. It's simple and it's good for prototyping, which is why it's good for data analysis because you can change it very easily.
Now, from this graph, we can tell that men bought over 400 units of this product this particular Sunday, and women bought
To be fair, you could do the simple graph in a spreadsheet too, but Python is good for more advanced data analysis
only about
than just a bar graph.
350 units of this product. And with this difference, as a data analyst, you might come up with a few plausible explanations that explain the difference. One possible explanation is that this product is simply more popular with men than with women. And another possible explanation is that the sample size was too small and this difference was just caused by chance. And yet another possible explanation might be that men tend to buy this product more only on Sunday for some reason, but not the other days. So to see which of these explanations is correct, you might create another graph like this one. Instead of showing the data for Sunday only, we're showing the data for all 7 days. And from this graph, we can
Again, you can do this in a spreadsheet, but I get where he's going. Yes, data analysis is a good use for Python.
see that the difference is pretty consistent over different days. So from this graph and from the earlier graph that we saw, we might conclude that the most convincing explanation is that this product is simply more popular with men than with women. Okay, so this is sort of a simplified example of what actual data analysis might look like in the real world.
Excel for life. I mean, I use Google Sheets, but yeah, Excel basically.
And it's kind of similar to the kind of work I did, at Google too. So it was just like this one, but only more complex.
This guy worked at Google? Fuck, that's awesome.
And I actually used Python when I was working at Google for this kind of analysis too. Now, one of the most popular data visualization libraries for Python is Matplotlib. And I think it's a good library to get started with.
Matplotlib is really good as well. Again, engineers mostly use it, but...
Because first of all...
Hi. She's interrupting again.
Going.
Okay, where are you going?
Running away forever and never coming.
Okay, have fun.
No, we bought a storage unit.
Okay.
We're gonna go take a look. We're gonna go to Home Depot because I'm short.
Okay, enjoy.
Which is weird because I'm tall. Like average person, I'm tall for an average female, but short. And I need a step ladder.
Everyone's short to me.
You won't help me. And I say, hey, tall person, can you help me? I want to help. So
I don't want to help.
I am finding ways to get around that and do my own thing, and I'm gonna buy a freaking step ladder because I never
Okay.
thought in a million years that I would have to buy a step ladder.
Enjoy your stepladder.
We'll be back in a couple hours.
Alright, enjoy. I have a license from school and I'm basically forced to use it to mess off as it is. It works.
It's still one of the most popular ones. And it's also easy to get started with.
Stepladders. That's all I got from this is stepladders. Yeah, pretty much.
And there are other libraries that are based on Matplotlib. So if you learn Matplotlib, it's going to help you, learn these other libraries later on if you want to. For example, this one called Seaborn. Now, if you want to get into data analysis and
See, this shit is cool.
visualization, I'd recommend that you first start with my video tutorial. I'm going to put a link to that in the description. And after learning the fundamentals of, data analysis and visualization, I think learning the fundamentals of statistics will be really helpful as well. For that, I'd recommend websites like Khan Academy and Coursera. Okay, let's now go to the next topic, which is scripting. Well, first of all,
This is what Python is really fucking good at, because scripting and prototyping are very similar. And prototyping is a way to get something from pen and paper to a working application really fast, and Python is really good at doing that.
What is scripting? Scripting usually refers to writing small programs that are designed to automate simple tasks. So to clarify what I mean by that, let me give you a simple example from my personal experience here. So I used to work at a small startup in Japan where we had this email support system. It was basically a system where we'd respond to emails we received from our customers. And then when I was working there as an intern, I had this task of counting the numbers of emails we received containing certain keywords. We could have done this task manually, of course, but that would have been a lot of work. So we decided to write a simple program / script to do this task, and that's scripting.
Python was actually originally Ruby? Okay. Python was originally designed as a scripting language for system administrators. Python 2, or the original Python, I guess, was designed as a scripting language for system admins by a system admin. He basically said, okay, I've had enough of all these terrible scripting languages. I need something that's fast and works. And he wrote Python. And then he shared it, and everybody got a hold of it and said, oh my god, this is great. Python 2 happened, and then eventually, it became a full-blown programming language, and people were like, oh shit, classes are a thing that exist. And so that happened. Python 3. Brief history of Python there for you. But yeah, Python's really good at scripting, because that's what it was designed for.
Actually, we used Ruby for this particular task back then, but Python is also a good language for this kind of task. And Python is suited for this kind of task mainly because it has relatively simple syntax and it's easy to learn, and it's also quick to write something with it and test it.
That's what I was saying, basically. It's easy to learn, it's quick to write and test. And don't forget that it's pretty much the language that's taught in colleges these days. If you're starting out with programming, a lot of the time they'll start out with Python or Java. They're actually moving from Java to Python more and more these days. And so you'll see a lot of engineers, or a lot of the engineers that they go into four-year colleges, et cetera, will have to take a programming course, and they'll always take the programming 101, basically. And that's always Python. So those are the people who know Python. And it's really good because it's simple and it's easy to use. It lets them do a lot of testing without needing to go into programming languages or find a programmer.
So these are the three main popular applications of Python. But you might say, what about game development?
No.
Well, you could use this library called Pygame to develop games, but it's not the most popular gaming engine.
Pygame's fine. It works. Again, I wouldn't use Python for game development, though. I schooled as C#. Again, C#, Java, those kinds of languages are similar in syntax. But there are more and more you'll see schools moving to Python as the first introductory language.
You could use it to build a hobby project or a personal project, but I personally wouldn't choose it if you're serious about game development. If you're serious about game development, I'd rather pick something like Unity with C#.
Hey, perfect.
Which is one of the most popular game development engines out there.
C#'s really good at game development because it was designed for game development. F# is similar, I think.
And what about desktop applications? You could make one using Python, with libraries like tkinter.
I call it tkinter, but yeah, tkinter, Qt, those work. Again, I wouldn't necessarily make a desktop application with Python, but it's doable. And if you really needed UI for something, then fine. Yeah, use tkinter or Qt or whatever. That's cool.
Or Qt. but it doesn't seem like the most popular language for this kind of purpose either.
Yeah.
Instead, according to this Quora article I found, it seems like languages like Java, C#, and C++ are more popular for.
For a desktop application, I would probably use Java or C# because they have better handling for different, one, various platforms, and two, it's like the same truck every time. One, they have more support for various platforms, and two, they have better handling and better components that you can, and better ways of making these GUIs. They actually have like GUI builders and things, which helps a ton.
For this purpose. And recently, some companies started using JavaScript to create
No! Fuck off.
desktop applications too.
I mean, yes. I get it. Electron is a thing. But no!
For example,
Hi, Hi, Bend Over. I get it. Bend over. I get it. Hello, Bend Over 7002. How's it going? I'm so glad I chose the mature audiences for this.
Slack's desktop app was built with this thing called Electron, which allows you to build desktop applications with JavaScript.
I totally get it. I get it. Electron exists. It's a thing. Yes, you can make desktop applications with Electron and JavaScript. But please don't. Hey, thank you so much for the follow, Bend Over. I appreciate it. Please don't. JavaScript wasn't really designed. JavaScript was designed for Netscape as a kind of general purpose language for designed specifically for web. Yes, you can make desktop applications with it. Yes, you can make server applications with it. But it's not designed for it. And the issue that I have with JavaScript is that it's the language everybody knows, so they use it everywhere. And that's an issue because it's not really the language that's designed for that purpose. Again, I say, if you're in a team and your team knows JavaScript, use JavaScript. If you're in a team and your team knows Python, use Python. Use whatever. Be the person that knows these languages so they can use whatever language is being used for these various other, projects. Be the person who's versatile, who can work with any team. If you can't work with a team, you can't work in the industry. That's the biggest thing. Always be able to work in a team. Use the languages, know the languages that everybody else knows, use the languages that they're already using, use the tools that they're using, know how to use the libraries that they're using. Because if you don't, you're going to be the person who can't work in a team. And that's not good because you'll get fired. So yes, if everybody else is using JavaScript for their Electron app, learn JavaScript, use JavaScript, learn Electron, sure. But please stop using JavaScript for desktop apps. It's not designed for this. Actually, Electron has some good apps, but a little buggy. I have my room running on Node.js for Mata.js. Again, it's fine. You can technically use JavaScript for whatever you want, but it's not designed for it. Yeah, it runs fairly well, sure, but it's not the language that's designed for this. It has a bunch of drawbacks to developing desktop apps that, say, C# or Java doesn't have. It's kind of an issue sometimes. So again, use the language for the job. But if you can't, or if you're working in a team that only knows a particular language, use whatever that they know. A couple Arduinos, sensors, relay boards, MOSFETs, web interface. Yeah, web interface, great. Use whatever you want for that. JavaScript's really good for creating a nice GUI.
And it's
A web GUI, which again is why people are using it for desktop apps, because hey, web GUIs are super nice. We can use this for desktop. And they look super nice, but they run like shit.
seems like a recent trend. And personally, I'd go with the JavaScript option if I was building a desktop application, because it allows you to
It's simple and it looks nice, but it runs like shit.
reuse some of the code from your website if you have a website, and if you don't, you'll be able to use some of the same code from the desktop application to build a website as well. Okay, and you might say, what about embedded applications? Well, I'm not an expert on embedded applications.
Again, yes, you can use Python on... Okay, so there's two things about this, actually. One, yes, you can use Python on Raspberry Pis. It does work. I wouldn't recommend it. Again, unless you're doing prototyping or something simple, great. Use Python, use your GPI, pi.gpio, whatever, great. But I wouldn't really use it for a permanent embedded application. I would use something like the Arduino IDE for that instead. Or the Arduino IDE, the Arduino language for that instead. That's my personal preference. But again, use the language that your team knows, not the one that you know, or not the one that you prefer.
But I know that Python works with Raspberry Pi, and it seems like a popular application for hardware hobbyists.
Now, the second option is Google is actually coming out with Arduinos that run on Python. So that'll be interesting to see.
And you might
Discord is running on Electron, isn't it? Yes. So is literally every fucking thing else.
say, should I learn Python 3 or Python 2?
Learn Python 3.
Well, I'd recommend Python 3 since it's more modern.
It's not that it's more modern. Python 2 has been... the service has ended for Python 2. It's no longer being actively maintained and developed since like 2019, I think? 2018?
And it's a more popular option at this point.
So don't use a dead language. That's simple as that. Don't use Python 2 because it's literally a dead language. It no longer has support or maintenance. It's dead. Don't use it. Unless you have to.
Okay, if you have any other questions about this video or anything else, please feel free to let me know in a comment below or on Twitter.
All right, not bad. One last thing I wanted to take a look at was this it's not programming related, but I thought it was interesting. It's this Hunter, this WannaCry, the Marcus Hutchins or crap. What is this? Oh my god, it's freaking 25 minutes long. What is this? The Marcus Hutchins story, I forget what his online name is, but it was a huge story back a while ago, and it's more hacking related than it is programming related, but I thought it would be fun to kind of watch this and see what this is about. I thought it was interesting anyway. Can we not do... Hang on. Let's try something a little bit less than freaking 25 minutes. There we go. Here's one that's only a minute long, but I'd rather talk more about Marcus Hutchins. I don't know much about him, but I'd rather talk more about Marcus Hutchins than watch. I have no knowledge on programming. That's okay. You don't have to. We're just here to critique various programming related things. It's a lot of fun. All right, so we have something from the Telegraph, which, by the way, has copied the font of the Times. Or correct spelling. Hey, neither do I. Let's take a look at this. Oh, the sensationalism in here is awesome.
People sort of inundating me with messages thanking me.
It wasn't from the original story. It wasn't actually his bedroom. It was a coffee shop.
I'm a hero. I mean, I sort of just registered this domain for tracking, and I didn't intend for it to like sort of blow up and me to be all over the media. I was just sort of doing my job, and I don't really think that I'm a hero at all.
Oh my god, this is super loud. We didn't redirect the attack, it was a black hole domain.
Working, of course, for my company Cryptos Logic, we've been trying to provide the IP addresses to NCSC, the FBI, so that victims can be notified.
And yeah, the FBI is still went after him.
I've been having queries from like certs around the world. Obviously, journalists are sort of inundating me with the queries. So yeah, we're just pretty much business as usual, except I have not had any sleep in 3 days.
Sounds about right.
Out in the papers, sort of my general location is, so I don't think I'm ever going back to being the malware tech that no one knew.
Oh, malware tech, that's what his name was, yes. I'm sorry for me. Alright, so it was simple, but I'd like to talk more about Marcus Hutchins because it's an interesting story. Again, my knowledge is limited. I try not to be that creeper that follows, someone around the interwebs. But the story is interesting. So the whole WannaCry attack, the whole WannaCry thing, happened a few years ago. It was probably, what, 3-4 years ago now? What's the date on that? 3-4 years ago? Man, a while back, the whole WannaCry thing happened. Basically, exploit was found by the NSA. And so this starts way back, actually. Exploit was found by the NSA and was heavily used and exploited, for nation-state attacks, essentially, against China, against Russia, etc., etc. And eventually, they got hacked, or one of their tool servers got hacked, as sometimes happens. And it was hacked by a relatively small group that decided they were going to try and release these tools to the general public. China #1, no. So they decided they were going to release these tools to the general public for a price. And Bitcoin things happen, yada yada. But long story short, eventually it did get released to the public, and these tools got dumped. And one of the exploits was Eternal Blue, and there was a few others. I believe WannaCry was the one that popularized and used Eternal Blue, essentially. So about a year after these tools were dumped, everyone's up in arms, like, oh god, we have this exploit against Windows that works on pretty much all versions, etc., etc., including Windows 10 at the time. So you had all these unpatched systems, Windows XP, all these, exploitable systems that were floating around the internet, and this 0-day basically dropped. 0-day is an exploit that happened that gets used that the company has 0 days to provide a patch for. So it's a 0-day got dropped, and it's a big one. It allows for RCE remote code execution on any target Windows system. It would have worked on any Windows system available at the time, and that was big. That was really big, and that was a problem because you have this exploit out in the wild that nobody has a patch for. And so what happened I'd say about a year later, no, it wasn't a year, it was a few months later, some ransomware started coming out because, ransomware is huge these days. It's an easy way to get money and nobody's fucking creative anymore. So ransomware came out a few months later, and one of the ransomware that came out was WannaCry. And WannaCry was named this because people are weird, I guess. But WannaCry used this Eternal Blue exploit to attack a remote Windows machine and install itself and basically encrypt your entire hard drive and then ask for payment to get it back. And so Marcus here, our malware tech blog, found it, and his original story that I heard goes that he was sitting with a friend over coffee. He was talking about it, and he was, I guess, looking through this malware at the same time, and he discovered that it connects to a domain, and he discovered the domain was unregistered. So all he did was register this domain to kind of basically keep track of the number of installs that were happening, because that's a really good way to do it. Like this malware says, if this malware is connecting to a specific domain, you register it, because then you can keep track of how many people have it installed. And so it turns out this domain was a black hole domain. And so what that means is that when you register this domain, when the malware sees that this domain is online, it basically shuts down and does nothing, instead of what it's, or a kill switch domain, a black hole domain or a kill switch domain. And so basically the malware checks this domain and says, oh, well, this domain exists, it's online now, it points to a real IP, so I'm just going to do nothing. And so what he unintentionally did was he unintentionally stopped an entire ransomware attack that could have gone global, and very easily could have gone global. So we're all very thankful to him for doing that. So it's interesting how that story progressed. Apparently, later on, news outlets, mainstream news got him, and he exploded, and he went to DEF CON a while later and apparently got nabbed by the FBI for some stuff he did when he was a teenager before he started working on ransomware. Or malware, really. So that was kind of sucky. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if he was released. I assume so, but the entire story is really interesting. Of course, after that whole story blew up, people thought, well, I'll just make a ransomware without a kill switch. And so they did. And so many people are affected. There's lots of strains of this WannaCry that were basically just omitted the kill switch. And so those eventually spread. And by then, people were patched up, mostly. There were still some affected XP boxes. Microsoft actually did patch XP, which is the first time ever that they did that. But yeah, there's still some boxes that were affected, of course, because people won't fucking update. But generally, the world was relatively safe at that point. So basically, he saved the entire world. He's probably more of a hero than we know, than we can predict. So it's really cool. I know it's entirely accidental. Like, he was just registering a domain just for tracking, but I think it was really cool, and honestly, that was awesome. Discord app has JavaScript, React, Elixir, and Rust. Jesus Christ. Really? It has React, Elixir, and Rust. Or React and Elixir are frameworks for JavaScript. I didn't know that it had React and Elixir. That sounds really strange. Why would you use both? Rust sounds like it would make the C++ like app, just like you would make the desktop app for, yeah. JavaScript and React sound like if you use the app online. Elixir basically syncs them up. I don't know. I don't think so. React and Elixir are frameworks for JavaScript. I don't know why you'd use both. That seems strange. They're both specifically frameworks for DOM manipulation, or display object model manipulation, the things that appear on your screen. So I don't know why you'd use both. It seems like more likely what happened was somebody started using Elixir or React, and then somebody else came along and said, no, we're going to switch to this other tech, and then both got used. The programmer Jesus. Exactly. No clue, yeah. I don't know why I would use Rust. That's strange. Cool, but strange. Either way, I think it's kind of neat, but I think today we are probably going to call it a day. It's already about 2 o'clock my time, so we've been going for like 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. So we're gonna chill and kind of call it a stream, but don't worry, we'll be back on Monday too. But I've got homework to do. Unfortunately, I've got some assembly to write. Unfortunately. It's not even the final project yet. I'm sad. But, yeah. We'll go ahead and turn our music up. I'm a professional. $10 p.m. here. Looks like I could get some sleep today. Yeah. Enjoy Bend Over. Don't have too much fun. We're gonna call it a stream here, and I will see you guys on Monday, 1 a.m. Jesus, get some sleep. Have a good day, Terry. Don't have too much fun. I appreciate everybody hopping in. I do honestly appreciate everyone coming in and joining me. You know what I haven't ever done that I do want to try is if everyone's kind of up for it. And I have the people that I have. Let's see. Is anyone online? Have the people that I have. Whoops. Nope. No, it doesn't look like it. I was gonna say like we could try raid, but it doesn't look like that is a possibility because none of the people that I followed specifically for this are online at the moment. But yeah, it's okay. Oh, 1 p.m. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, in that case, everyone. Enjoy. We'll raid somebody at some other point. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. I followed a couple of people that are similar in style or content to myself, so that way you can, when you end up raiding them, or when we end up raiding them at some point, it'll actually be somewhat similar and you can continue to be entertained. Are you not entertained? All right, enjoy. Don't have too much fun, guys. I'll see you next time. That was the wrong one. Bye!